One of the questions I get all the time from people who play competitive tennis is how do I beat a pusher, or how do I beat a slow ball player? And you know, I think first of all we should recognize that people who play slow ball tennis, or people who push, or passive players, or whatever you want to call them, defensive players, you know, let's give them credit. They understand that the primary goal of tennis is to keep the ball in play. And so they take that concept, that strategic concept, to the extreme. And when you play a slow ball player, they're not going to miss very much. And they will do everything they can to keep every single ball in play. They won't take a lot of risk. And so if you don't have an understanding of what you need to do, generally you will self-destruct, which is what they hope will happen. There's a few different ways to play a slow ball player, and depending on your skill level, your technical level, your age, your fitness level, some of these will be applicable. So you know, what happens when you're playing a slow ball player is the ball comes back over and over, and generally what people do is they start to panic, they start to try to hit better shots. And as they hit the ball harder and closer to the lines, they start missing. And of course the slow ball player's happy about that, because then you're giving them free points. And as the match progresses and you miss more, you get more frustrated, and your attention level gets ramped up, and it's harder to concentrate. So the first thing you have to be able to do is recognize when you're playing a slow ball player, regardless of the style of tennis you choose, it's going to be a long match, and you have to be set and ready mentally to play a long match. The first method that people often apply, and I don't recommend this method because you have to be seriously better technically than the person who's slow balling. So that method is to hit the ball consistently to the corners with enough pace to cause the slow ball player to be moved out of position that you can eventually hit a winner off the ground. Now, when people try to do this, this is usually the way that people miss, because very few people have the technical proficiency to counteract that slow ball game with these aggressive ground strokes to the corner. So that's the style of tennis, the strategy that's most often employed, and it's generally not that effective. Another method that you can use, which is a little bit easier, particularly if you have a good overhead, is to come to the net more. So if you come to the net more against a slow ball player, you're immediately going to cause the points to be shorter. Generally speaking, if it's a passive player, you're going to face more lobs. And if you have a quality overhead and you're patient on your overhead, then you can actually create situations where you can end the point quicker. And it's a lot easier to do that, provided you have a net game. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to try to hit winners from the baseline against a slow ball player. Another method, which people don't often think about, which is highly effective, is to drop shot more. Because if you drop shot more, you're bringing the slow ball player into the net where they don't really want to be. They want to be parked on the baseline, playing comfortable long rallies, and if you drop the ball and force them to run forward, now you've got them in a location in the court where they're uncomfortable, and they generally won't play the ball as effectively from there, and you can either pass them or lob them at that point. So if you're playing a slow ball player, you change it up by drop shotting, force the other person to move in, and then you get them in a situation where they're uncomfortable. That's a very effective technique, and of course you have to own a quality drop shot to make that happen. And the last, and I don't mean to put this in any hierarchy, these are all equal options. Another option is to outweight the slow ball player. In this scenario, you have to be able to keep the ball going just as long as them. It helps if you're fitter or younger than the slow ball player, and I wouldn't advise this unless you are fitter or younger. And you have to just be willing to have a 50-ball rally, or a 60-ball rally, or a 70-ball rally, whatever it takes, to convince the slow ball player that it's perfectly okay with you to play a 4-hour match. And if you're willing to take that time to play a 4-hour tennis match to get to 6-3, 6-3, then ultimately you're going to find out just how patient that slow ball player is, and you may force them to change their game. Now, if you can get them to come out of their game and to be more offensive, then you can go back to changing it up at that point. But being willing to stay in a long, and I mean a super long rally with a slow ball player, hitting the ball slowly, is one of the ways that you can find out just where that player is in terms of their whole approach to the sport. Those are 4 simple ways to deal with a slow ball player, and I wish you the best.